JC Parets is president and founder of Eagle Bay Capital and editor of the technical analysis blog allstarcharts.com. JC, good to see you this morning.
Thanks for having me, Francis. How are you?
I'm terrific. Might be going to Hooters for some chicken wings at lunch, or maybe not.
You and me both.
Let's start with the markets, a broad look at the markets. Both the U.S. and Canadian equities, you've been bullish on Canadian equities, but we're going to start with the S&P 500. You think a pullback of some magnitude is pending?
Sure, yeah. As you know, we haven't been a big fan of stocks as a group, especially here in the United States, pretty much all year. Depending on what average you're looking at, sure, the Dow's up 3%, S&P's up a little bit more, but the Russell 2000 is down for the year. The micro caps are down 4.5% for the year. So I'm not too thrilled about U.S. stocks here. Canadian stocks, you and I have been talking about it, they've been outperforming the U.S. dramatically. A lot of that probably has to do with some of that commodity exposure, and, we've talked about that, and I think that probably continues, the outperformance.
The outperformance, but would you expect a pullback in Canadian equities kind of broadly as well?
We've raced higher. I mean, they've been ripping since last time I was on your show, a couple of months back. Sure, can they digest some of those gains for now? Of course, but they can do that through time. They don't necessarily have to correct through price and have a downside correction. They can just kind of hang out up here for a little while, but our target remains the same. I think we got another 5-6% to the upside in Canadian stocks as a group, for sure.
Now, you've been, we're going to talk about the dollar and treasuries. You've been a bull all year. That's been working out, but I want to start with the coal trade. We have a graph from one of your charts, from one of your packages, looking at coal, the KOL, the ETF that tracks the commodity, relative to the S&P 500. And tell us, we're just looking at that chart plus a momentum chart below, but starting to pick up a little steam. What does this tell you about the outlook for coal?
It really is. And Francis, I mean, how many times have, you and I discussed the hatred in a specific name, whether it was bonds coming into the year, whether it was dollars in May. We're seeing that hatred in coal stocks. Who do you know likes coal stocks? I don't hear anybody pounding the table on it. I like it. Structurally, it seems like a bottom. We have a double bottom in the KOL with momentum picking up. KOL is the coal exchange traded fund that has a basket of a bunch of them. So you're going to get good exposure there, and you're getting it diversified too. So when you talk about the relative strength, I think this is really, really important because we're getting a killer combination. So what I like to look at is not just relative strength improving, but I want to see the momentum in relative strength improving. We're seeing that on a weekly time frame. We're seeing it on a daily time frame. Bullish divergences in the momentum of relative strength. That's a killer combination, Francis. And now on an absolute basis, from a pure price perspective, we're getting the breakout that we wanted. So sure, the relative strength, the momentum, the sentiment, all that's great, but that's just supplemental to price. And price, the most important thing, is now breaking out, confirming all of these other signals. I love it. I think you probably got another 20% upside in the short term. Then we'll reevaluate.
JC, always good to hear your views. We're going to have to cut it short today. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Francis.
JC Parets from allstarcharts.com. He also likes Cliffs. That chart is also profiled in his recent review.